Hello, rock and roll fans. I will mention some songwriters, rock and roll songwriters, and I will tell you which rock and roll songwriter is my personal favorite. There's no way of saying who is the best at anything. I know they do that at the Academy Awards and everything, but they're kind of silly. But I will tell you my favorite songwriter. But let me mention a lot of different songwriters, people who have given us some pretty wonderful music over the years. I'll use my spectacles here so I don't forget to mention anyone. First of all, I will mention there are not too many ladies in the list of top rock and roll songwriters. I'm sure I've forgotten someone, and you can remind me. Leave some comments below. Tell me your favorite writer or some of the lyrics that you really appreciate from songs that were important in your lifetime. The two females who I have to give credit to for writing some fabulous songs, Felice Bryant, and probably no one knows who Felice Bryant is, but Felice and Boudleaux Bryant wrote most of the Everly Brothers' early hits. And of course, Carole King. Carole King wrote probably 50 different big hit rock and roll songs, so she certainly was one of the contenders for greatest songwriter, rock and roll songwriter of all time. Otis Blackwell wrote some of the hits for people like Elvis Presley. I always like the music of the Eagles, written by Don Henley and Glenn Frey, songs like Lion Eyes and so on. Very intelligent lyrics and fine music that they wrote, but they're not my favorite. They're not my number one. They might be your number one, and they're certainly great. James Brown, of course, wrote fabulous songs and performed with probably more energy than the next 10 rock and rollers combined. Buddy Holly wrote a lot of hit songs and good songs in a very short period of time. Little Richard wrote some good songs. He's still with us. Little Richard wrote one of my favorite songs. He wrote Rip It Up, which has a verse that begins, well, it's Saturday night and I just got paid. I'm a fool about my money. Don't try to save. My heart says go, go, have a time. It's Saturday night and baby, I'm feeling fine. I like writing like that, where you can just read the lyrics and they have an automatic rhythm that comes along. It's hard not to sing them with feeling. Fats Domino wrote a lot of wonderful songs. Ain't That a Shame, I'm Walking, and so on. And he was one of the first real rock and roll singers and songwriters. He had a hit song, 1948, sold 1 million copies, called The Fat Man, and it was rock and roll. They didn't have the term rock and roll applied to music at that time. Rock and roll actually was a term which meant making love, if I may make it as proper for the family as I can. Lieber and Stoller wrote lots and lots of great hit songs like Kansas City, Jailhouse Rock. They wrote the Coasters hits like Charlie Brown and so on. And we mentioned Carole King. She had a writing partner, and for a while her husband, Jerry Goffin, and Goffin. In Holland, Dozier and Holland, they wrote many of the hits that were produced for Motown, so they certainly are great. Jan Berry was the first surf rock and roll songwriter. He was a person who influenced Brian Wilson, who also was on my list of great songwriters. And of course Elton John. I don't want to forget Elton John. He had a lot of songs that he wrote that were great. And Bob Dylan wrote many great songs for a lot of different artists. And Lennon and McCartney of the Beatles. I have no idea how many songs they wrote that were big hits and how many they wrote that were number one. At one time, there were the top five positions on the popular 100 records. The top 5 were Beatles songs. And I think that's the only time that's ever happened. But anyway, Lennon, McCartney, they're still not my number 1 though. And then there's Smokey Robinson, Stevie Wonder. They certainly did a fabulous job. Roy Orbison wrote songs that will be with us for a long time. Marty Robbins actually wrote some rock and roll hit songs like A White Sport Coat and a Pink Carnation way back when, and he wrote other songs as time passed, and he's not my number 1 on the list of all-time great rock and roll songwriters. John Fogerty did a pretty good job writing songs and performing songs, and Michael Jackson. I will now reveal who I think is the number 1 rock and roll songwriter of all time, the king of the rock and roll songwriters. And you certainly have the right to disagree, but I'll give you some of his lyrics and then tell you his name. His first hit was a song that started with the letter M. Maybelline was the song title, and he wrote a song that was starting out with, as I was motivating over the hill, I saw Maybelline, the Coupe de Ville, Cadillac rolling the open road, ain't nothing outrun my V8 Ford, Cadillac go about 95, roll bumper to bumper, going side by side. And his name was Chuck Berry. Chuck Berry is my favorite rock and roll songwriter of all time, and I'll mention that while he is still alive, still with us. And as far as I know, he still performs now and then. And he wrote fabulous songs like Johnny Be Good, Roll Over Beethoven. He wrote a song called Promised Land, which is a wonderful, wonderful song. Came along about 1964. And he had a way of putting the lyrics into phrasing that was fun to listen to, fun to sing. And he could write about a serious subject like he did in Promised Land, or he could write fun tunes like another 1964 song was You Never Can Tell, which I always like. C'est la vie, say the old folks go. C'est la vie, say the old folks goes to show you never can tell. And so I'll give my nod of king of rock and roll songwriters to Chuck Berry, but I would be glad to hear whatever comment you have to say about great rock and roll songwriters, and please be sure to tell me who I missed, because I'm sure I missed probably at least 100 great rock and roll songwriters. Thank you for watching.